Okay, so I'm going to share screen and so forth. Um,
Okay, no problem.
can you still hear me?
Yes, I'm able to still hear you.
Okay, great. Right, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks. Just settling in a new country. That's all.
Oh, I see you. All right. Oh, you hearing the audio, by the way?
No, I'm not hearing the audio.
Not hearing the audio. Okay. Hmm. Sometimes I forget these simple settings. Okay, hold on. Okay. You hearing it now?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Okay, great. Good day, everyone. We are going to start um shortly. Just give us 4 more minutes to just allow additional people persons to join. Can you guys hear me fine? Because I think I'm having a bit of internet problem over here.
We're hearing you.
Okay, all right. Okay. Good day, everyone. We are about to start. So we're going to have Jada kick us off. Jada, you can go ahead and start the meeting.
Good evening, everyone. Is everyone hearing me clearly?
Yes, yes.
Okay, just to start again. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's 12th demo day. We are so excited that everyone could join us. So, demo day is one of the only days that are hosted by the Jamaica developers community. And so, in case anyone doesn't know what Demo Day aims to create a space for developers and digital professionals to share their work with their peers. We aim to encourage more persons to spend time honing their craft and culture, a space for potential investors or employers to identify talent. For those of you who don't know what the community is about, the Jamaica Developers Community, we are a community of creative thinkers, thought leaders, and innovators who love to work together to solve common problems. We are transforming the Caribbean community from a consumer to a producer of technology. And before we start, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors for this evening's demo day, which are Asub Limited, Vertus Technology Solutions Limited, and Particular Presence Limited. So, once again, good evening, everyone. I am Jada Ferguson. I am currently the Communications Officer for the community. And I'm also going to introduce Oshane Bailey, who is our speaker for this evening's demo day. He is a software developer and a tech entrepreneur. Oshane is an experienced developer with a demonstrated history of working in the computer software industry, skilled in Python, JavaScript, PHP, and Docker. He's an avid contributor to open source software and has participated in Google Summer of Code 2017 and 2018 open source initiative as a student and mentor, respectively. So without further ado, I'm going to allow Oshane to go ahead with his presentation. And audience, please be reminded that your questions can be dropped in the chat while the presentation is going on. So you can go ahead now, Oshane.
Thank you very much, Jada. So this presentation will be right straight into the demo, so I didn't prepare any slides. I want it to be a bit conversational. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand and I'll answer. But I'm going to focus on web technology in open source. So it's pretty much the tools that I tend to use when developing software, deploying application, and so forth. So I'm guessing all of us know what open source is. In layman term, it's pretty much software or source code that you can utilize. It's pretty much free, but of course there are different license. It's free to use, modify, and distribute depending on the different license. So there are many open source software out there, and many of these companies, even like big tech companies, use open source technology a lot. Some of them like is used like in deployment, like Kubernetes, Docker, and so forth. Some of them are frameworks like Laravel, WordPress, and other like Drupal, and some, of course, are programming language like Python. So I'm going to jump into the all.
ATTACK.
Hold on, mute. Okay, so I'm going to jump into like some of the development tools that I use locally. So majority of us tend to use like VS Code. VS Code. I tend to use VS Code as well as Android Studio to do Android development, Flutter development, and VS Code tend to be very powerful. So I'm going to show some of the plugins that I tend to utilize in VS Code. Let me share my screen. Yeah, one moment. So I don't necessarily have any project that I'm going to showcase in VS Code at the moment, but things that I tend to utilize when come out to VS Code, when come out extensions, you know, if you're doing Flutter, most likely you're using VS Code or Android Studio or IntelliJ. All of these IDEs are pretty open source, and these are straightforward extensions that you could utilize. But some of the reason why I'm showing VS Code is because there's some very key extensions that I tend to use, because if you know me, you know that I'm coming from a Chromebook, and you know, some of you might be wondering, oh, how comes I'm on Windows? I recently switched over to Windows. You know, some people would say I'm coming from what they a tin foil paper of computing power. So with VS Code, I tend to have this extension called Remote Explorer that will allow me, for example, I can easily SSH into a server directly from VS Code and return code directly on my local computer in the remote server, and everything that I tend to need. And this is pretty much SSH into like a demo WordPress project. And everything that I need is pretty much on locally on my computer, and pretty much stream all of the file system from that remote server directly to my the desktop. So I don't necessarily need the VS Code server anymore. I can just utilize it using this remote Explorer extension. Okay, so as you know, VS Code comes with a lot of like tooltips, documentation, and a way to just, you know, if you click on a function, it will show you where the source code for the function. If there's any like tips or tool documentation, like when come out to the parameters and so forth, VS Code would show you all of that. Another extension I tend to use locally, well, another feature of this Remote Explorer, you can also click on containers, and you will basically can develop inside of containers. So I practice container-driven development, whereby I no longer develop application directly on my host machine. I tend to use containers because, you know, say you want to utilize Python 2.7, which you know is deprecated, but you don't want to install it on your system. Containers are great for that. All you need to do is pull down Python 2.7 container, run it, and then you can use this tool, Remote Explorer, to develop inside of the container. Like for example, let me see. Attaching container. So you develop right inside of the container, and you can just modify the container, and then you can also like map what's inside of container to your source to the host machine. So thus you don't have like a bloatload of software installed on your computer. Everything is pretty much like inside of container standalone, and you know, you don't have to uninstall once you're finished with whichever software. So Remote Explorer extension for VS Code is pretty awesome tool that you can use, and of course it's open source. You can also edit. So as you know, many of these extensions that VS Code tend to offer are tend to be open source, and VS Code itself is open source. Tools that I would recommend if you're using Laravel, I would recommend that you install the like Laravel snippets, like Laravel snippets extension, the Braid extension, and Laravel IntelliSense, which will give you a lot of functionality to jump around in your code, as well as it gives you suggestions and highlights when come on to the best approach in developing Laravel application. For Python, of course, there's Python IntelliSense, PHP IntelliSense, and so forth. Most languages has like an IntelliSense extension, which I recommend you know install on your VS Code server. But like I said, these are some of the tools that I tend to use locally, but I'm mostly like a cloud-based developer, always developing my application either on a remote server or installing it on or using the remote explorer, or of course using Docker. All right, so before I continue, are there any questions thus far? And of course, I'll show it out to you what type of like IDE you tend to use in your everyday development circle. Are most of us like using VS Code? You can put a raise of hand. Okay. All right, noted. Okay, so I see a couple hands up, so that's cool. All right, so when it comes on to like after I tend to develop a software solution, I tend to like to have a server quick and ready up. Kubernetes is pretty much one of the main go-to when it comes on to containerization, orchestration, and deployment. But I tend to like simplicity. So I tend to utilize a software called Cortana, and I'll show you here. So Cortana, for example, is like a simple orchestration tool that lets you manage, observe, and you know, deploy containers, whether in using Docker Swarm, whether using Stack, or it also provides you know, integration with Kubernetes, Azure, and so forth. So, for example, I already have this spin up, and of course, as you can see, this IP address is exposed. So the IP address is exposed. I recently, no, well, a couple of minutes ago, I spin up this instance just for demo purposes. So on this server, I have a couple application running. So for example, Cortina is an application, WordPress, I think it's called Uptime Tumor. And Uptime Tumor is something that I tend to utilize both for development and production. So for example, so if I go to like Uptime Tumor, which I had deployed on tumor.teststeady.jamaicans.dev, I can easily, and this is again an open source solution. So if I want to know if any of my websites are down, any clients' websites are down, any API are down, I just spin up Uptime Tumor. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And I can easily add more and more websites without any limitation. There is a paid version. Well, not a paid version. The paid software for it is called I think up-time robot, and this is pretty much like paid, a paid monetization tool for your website. But again, why pay for it when there are open source tools that give you as much power and more? And of course, you can configure it to even provide more power than what paid servers have. Of course, you would have to maintain and deploy it. So for example, I can easily just add a website. Let's call this website Jamaicans.dev. Well, let me call this community JA. Community JA, you can indicate like the intervals or often it will like check if your website's up, number of retrials, and so forth. You can check if the SSL certificate is expired. You can, if there's like redirection happening, with WordPress sometimes, when they're apt, it constantly redirect until they land upon some unknown website. So you can indicate like a maximum redirection. And of course, if it hit the maximum, you know that something is wrong with your website. You can also set up, for example, notification. So you can, send like uptime status to Telegram, to Slack, to Signal, send an email to Teams, and many, many more, as well as just triggering a webhook. But I'm not going to set up any of these, but as you get the picture that you have a lot of power to really monitor your website. So, like if Company Office of Jamaica website goes down, which tend to goes down often, this is a good tool that would alert them. I tend to use it for all of my customers, as I mentioned. So we tend to know if the website is down before they do, because the worst thing you want is that your customers can't access their website, or if you're managing a client website, they have to report it to you. So it's a way for you to be proactive instead of reactive to changes. So Uptime Robot, if you're in web development, I would recommend this is a tool that you can use, and of course you can contribute to their open source code. It also can be found on GitHub if you just GitHub, if you search for Uptime Kuma. So here's a repository for it. I believe it's written in Node.js. Yes, it's written in Node.js. So it's a pretty cool, and they have dark mode. It's a pretty cool tool. Let me just save this. Another cool thing about this, you can actually create status pages. So for example, let me call the status page JA. And for example, you can add services to this status page. Let's click save. And then, for example, you can provide like a general status page to your customers, or just you don't have to log in to see whether your services are up or down. All of it will just display right here. So it's a pretty cool tool for you to track whether your sites are up or down. Oh, you're not seeing the screen? Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. Thank you for that, Colin and Jason. So I'll just quickly show you what I was going through. So Uptime Kuma. Okay, let me show the entire screen just in case. Yeah, Uptime Kuma, this is pretty much how it looks. You see like the different websites you can add monitors for a different website, and it will show you at each interval whether your website is done. It show the average response time, up the number of days, hours uptime on the set. You can add as much website as you want to track. For example, if I go, let me get COG website. So for example, wow, interesting, quite interesting. So I can literally set up like a tracker for pretty much any website. Let's call it COJ, put their URL in, the interval, the number of retrials, and so forth. As I was mentioning earlier when my screen wasn't shared, you can set up notification like a lot of different integration, whether it's Telegram, webbook, Teams, emails, Slack, Signal, or so forth. You can set up where you can get instant notification when your website is done or not. And of course, you can check if the certificate, the SSL certificate is expired, maximum retrial if your website is in continuous loop or redirects. And once you click save is that easier, easy as that, and you can literally check on the status page, which are public page for individuals to see the status of your website, if it's up or not. So it's a good way of monitoring all your cloud services and website if you're into web dev. Another tool that I tend to use, which I tend to recommend, is Nginx Proxy. So many times individuals would build website, pay money for like SSL certificate, which tend to cost $60. But you can utilize SSL certificate provider called Let's Encrypt. And Let's Encrypt offers free SSL. SSL is pretty much what gives you that security on top of HTTP. So once you see the S, you know that it's pretty much saying secured by SSL. So for example, I can easily, for example, add a website right here. So for example, let's see, I already have like some containers running. So for example, this is a WordPress container that is running using Portainer. And I can easily set up, okay, another Portainer container that is running on another domain on that, pointing to that container. So for example, let's call this WP2 dot steady test steady dot Jamaicans dot dev. Port 80. And then so for example, if I save it like this, this domain will pretty much work, but as you can see, it's saying unprotected, and we can easily protect our website with using an SSL certificate by just clicking SSL certificate force SSL you agree. And of course, you can enable additional security. And of course, you can also block common exploits that, engineers tend to know about from, like, for example, DDoS attacks, cross-site scripting. You can block all of those by just enable it. It's not going to block everything, but it's an additional help, and it also have integration with Cloudflare. For example, if you need to do a DNS challenge, it has Cloudflare and other service providers to provide additional DNS challenge to ensure that your website is secure using a web firewall. So for example, if I click save, instantly, if you have a website, you get a free SSL certificate, pretty secured and so forth. So if I click on it now, you notice that it goes to the website and you see the HTTPS. So pretty easy, pretty simple, and this pretty much is easy to set up, easy install. This is actually running inside of a container. Everything that I'm doing is pretty much open source, and you can modify it and utilize. Let me go. Wow. So if the WordPress instance that we are using is pretty much inside of a container and in in the stack, which is like Docker Compose. If I click on edit right here, you notice it's pretty much saying, okay, this is a database. I'm using MySQL. This is the image WordPress, and we're using the latest version of WordPress. Of course, this is like a Docker Compose file that is converted in stack. Normally, we wouldn't have the secret key and the environmental variable right here, but for demo purposes, it's there. But normally, these data would have been kept in secrets and encrypted and passed to the container to do the database connection and website. So for example, so we already have like a WordPress thing running. So say if we want Drupal, just a simple Drupal website, or even for example, another Kuma application up and running, all I need to do is click deploy. Hold on. Think I have to edit this. And let me just edit that. Okay. So I click deploy. Oh, my bad. I need to rename it. Kuma 2. I would say deploy, and it will deploy the stack. So you notice that there's Kuma and Kuma 2. So simple like that, is just deploy an additional instance of Kuma, and we're just waiting on the Kuma to up and running. Otherwise, from that, you can literally come on apply app templates, and you notice there's a lot of app templates where if you want to spin up a Redis server, if you want to spin up Docker, or there's a lot of different applications that you can spin up, as well as like databases. So it comes with a lot of applications, serverless applications, and so forth. So I'm using like the free version. In another version of Portainer, there would be a lot more application that I could choose from. But let's click on CMS. Earlier, as you saw, it's running WordPress CMS. So for example, I can say I call this site, like a customer contact me and say they want a WordPress website, can just say call it WP, deploy stack, and straight away, cause WP, it's been deployed and it's running on that port. But what I'll do is that, for example, I deploy that application, I'll come to port no, Nginx proxy manager and say cost2 dot steady is it that test steady dot dot jamaicans dot dev port 80, and of course I'll just ensure that SSL save. And of course, you can utilize like custom your own domains, your subdomains, or so forth. All you need to do is point your DNS server to the IP address of Nginx proxy, and you have it up and running in no time. For the reason why I'm able to just do it without any Nginx setting up any additional DNS record is because my DNS provider, I point teststeady.jamaicans.dev as a wildcard to this this domain, this IP address. So anything that goes in front of teststeady will automatically resolve to this IP address. Hold on. Yes. So let me check on something. Fresh. Okay, so this is failing. And the reason why this is failing, if you notice, right? Yeah, the database is running okay. Everything is running okay. But the reason why I'm not able to access it is because the port, hold on. Let me come right here and just copy and paste. So the port that the new WordPress instance is on is being used, as well as the domain, I need to add the domain to my proxynet so that no one, because right now the WordPress instance is isolated inside of the container network. So I'm just exposing that the application outside of the container network, and that can easily be done by going back to this, adding you know, the proxy network, indicating that's external website, and of course I'm just copying and pasting at this point. Let me actually call this DB something else. Give it a different data path. DB data V and D. So this is where the data for MySQL will be stored. So once I click that, click update, it pretty much will update the server, and in like 2-3 minutes, I'll be able to have a fresh new WordPress site deployed, as you can see. So it's simple, clean, and easy to do. All right. Any question thus far? it's been a while since you've seen browser icon. I use it time to time because there's still some people who give you FTP access instead of SSH. All right. But say for example, you have like let me find a Docker Compose application for Node.js. You can easily deploy almost any like containerized application. Let me find GitHub. Postgres. Like for example, okay, so this is definitely like a build. It's just a Postgres only. I would say I would copy this and then in Portainer, I can just easily then say, okay, create a new stop, call this pg admin, drop the drop the compose file in there. I'm not necessarily going to check all of this. Just hopefully it's okay. There's a bridge, and I guess that's fine. And once I click deploy, okay. So unsupported restart, ignore. Okay, container name. So as you can see, if you drop something, it will give you the warning, what to change, what's not supported, and so forth. But it seems like this has a lot of flags that we don't support. But that's generally like some of the tools that I utilize. So like Jason, I know that you're a Jamstack person, can easily deploy, set up and deploy your Jamstack application on a container. And of course, if you need to scale it like across multiple servers, Portainer also offers that. And with Portainer and Nginx, you don't necessarily need a load balancer because Nginx Proxy Manager will pretty much load balance your website traffic across multiple nodes. So that's like the benefit of using these open source tools when come to building certain web project. And of course, you can find out there's a website, awesome. I think it's called awesome open source. Where is it? There's a website called Awesome Open Source. I'm not necessarily sure of the domain name, but it provides you with a lot of open source alternative. Like for example, there's an open source alternative for Zapier, which Zapier is used for like integration, workflows, and triggers. What's it called? And Hold on, let me actually use my other profile to find it. Oh, yeah, this is what it's called. Oh, open source alternative tool. So for example, you can search for Zapier and it will provide you with some, examples of what you alternative for Zapier. So if you don't want to pay for Zapier, this is a great alternative. You can visit their GitHub page, visit their web page, and you see, okay, you see well, this 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 UI is actually not so great. Let me find one that I actually end up liking, and I don't remember which one of these I'm using as an alternative to Zapier. Yeah, I think this is the one. So if you want to do like integration with a lot of stuff, and Zapier limits you by the amount of connections, triggers, and so forth, this is a great way of using workflows and triggers. Again, pretty open source, you can configure and so forth. They do have a code version that is paid, but you can also use the community edition version. So okay, deploy in 5 minutes or less. Yeah. Because again, once you have like your compose file, you can just drop your compose file in a stack and you have it up. So that's pretty much what I wanted to showcase. Nginx proxy, Nginx proxy, Portainer, and what else did I show? And Kuma. Those three projects for web technology, developing websites, deploying them, as well as monitoring your website. So if there's any question, you can go ahead and ask. Okay, no question. All right, so with that said, that's it for this event. Jada, you can go ahead and wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Oshane, for that demo day. It was really inspiring and encouraging. It was really well put together. I should say very interesting at that. I learned a lot, specifically for me. I want to also thank the audience for attending. And I want to remind you guys of the other events that we are coming up with. The next event should be a Thursday. So keep out an eye for that on the meetup, as well as we will be sending it out to or through our various platforms. And remember that we're always looking for volunteers to assist with any area. I would also like to shout out to our sponsors again, which are Asub Limited, Vertus Technologies Solutions Limited, and Particular Presence Technologies Limited. Please be reminded that you guys can email us at community@caribbean.dev or message us on social media, or you can find us on Facebook at, let me just tell you the right name. Give me 1 second. You can reach us to us on our social media handles: LinkedIn at Jamaica Developers Community, Facebook the same, Jamaica Developers Community, and Instagram at JamDevCo. Thank you guys once again for coming out to this evening's demo day, and thank you again, Oshane, for presenting. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right, take care, guys. See you next time.